I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, good evening and welcome to the June edition of the Philipstown Planning Board meeting. I'm a little tired tonight. I had food poisoning 2 nights ago, and I took the red eye from LA last night, so I'm not in my usual humorous, excitable mood. So call the roll, please, Cheryl.
Joe Burden. Dennis Gagnon.
Here.
Peter Lewis.
Here.
Laura O'Connell. Here. Neil Toman.
Here.
Heidi Wendell. Here. Neil Zuckerman.
Here. Okay, minutes have been distributed. Can I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, any edits, deletions, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
I vote aye. Okay, motion's approved. Request to return escrow. Any issues here, Ron?
No, whatever.
Okay. Motion to return the escrow for Schaublin Fortunato.
Make that motion.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Dennis. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And motion passes. Kozlowski and Effle. Effle? Okay, that was really good. All right, well, you probably are practicing to read the announcement. So, Cheryl, if you wouldn't mind reading the announcement for the public hearing.
Planning Board of the Town of Philipstown, New York will hold a public hearing on Thursday, June 15th, 2023, starting at 7:30 p.m. at the Philipstown Town Hall, 238 Main Street, Cold Spring, New York, to consider the following application. Kozlowski and Effle, 168 South Mountain Pass, Garrison, New York, 10524, tax map number 90.-1-9. Minor project, additions to a single-family dwelling, encompasses renovation and additions to a dwelling where the total cumulative footprint will be greater than 3,000 square feet and where the footprint of the addition exceeds 1,000 square feet. Project to be served by a replacement septic system and existing potable well, dated at Philipstown, New York, this 20th day of April, 2023.
Okay.
Neil Zuckerman.
Jason, you got some short words for us?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jason Snyder with Beatty and Watson representing the applicants, Linda Kozlowski and Michael Effle. So just briefly, to recap, we have an existing residence on South Mountain Pass. It's a 10.5 acre parcel in the town's rural conservation district. We do have a scenic protection overlay district along South Mountain Pass. We don't have any disturbance or construction activities proposed in the SPO. We have an existing well and septic system, both of which are going to be replaced, proposed to be replaced, and have health department approval for those. We have some comments. We have a town-regulated stream that traverses the property. We have some comments from or some guidance from the Conservation Board on some mitigation measures to address those impacts to the stream. But what we're looking for tonight is just the public hearing to.
Yeah, we're in the public
Yeah,
hearing.
yeah.
Yeah, we're in it.
Yeah, we're in it.
This
we're
is
deep,
the welcome to the public hearing. We are in it.
So that's about it.
Okay. Any members of the public here to speak on this matter? Okay. Do you want to say I know you had something you want to say. You want to do that now, or you want to wait till it closes? All right. So going once, twice. All right. Motion to close the public hearing.
Make that motion.
Thank you. Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Motion passes. All right. So board members, any comments you want to make on this application? Okay. Neil.
Okay.
All right.
Jason, how long have we been working on this? We've been working on this application for a while, okay? And I think at one of the first site visits, I expressed my concern over being on a Class C stream. And as you just mentioned, the Class C stream is a town-regulated stream. So there's all different levels of streams. There's A's, double A's, for recreation, drinking, potable water. There's a whole alphabet of streams. And the only one that is not regulated by the DEC is a C, which is what we have here. So my problem with this application is, and I think I've mentioned this before also, is workability and precedent. Because there are several, what it's going to do, if we approve this scale of construction at this proximity to the stream, then that becomes the policy. Because it's going to be very hard for us to get an application a couple months from now from somebody else on another C-class stream who wants to put in a writer's cabin or wants to, I don't know what. But once we've allowed a certain size build at a certain distance from the sea, from the stream, then that's what we have to stick with. So if you go on, and that's not the only stream. That's the South Mountain Pass stream. If you go over the ridge, you go down Copper Mine Brook is a C. If you go down around Graymore and the old Everett's property, that's Ansville Creek, that's a C. Then you've got behind the rec center, the old Capuchin property, that's a C. And then you've got Indian Brook Road, and then you've got Clove Creek. These are all Cs, and I'm sure that, and there's also one on the end of East Mountain Road, Esselborn, and then there's another one. We just did an application up here not too long ago, Mountain Brook Drive. So that's my problem, is that if we allow this, all those streams, we sort of have a new rule, and I would rather that rule come from a code change and not from this setting.
Other board members' questions? Comments? Okay, Steve, any comments on what Neil was talking about?
Well, I agree with what Neil said, and certainly the principle is sound. The only thing I would add to it is this. A planning board decision can be distinguished from subsequent applications. So if there was some factual basis to distinguish subsequent applications for land development along Class C streams, you wouldn't be necessarily bound to approve it. You may be able to say, well, you know, this is a little bit different than Kozlowski and Effle because we have this and that and the other factor. But in general, I think you raise a very legitimate concern. That's awful close to the stream. I'm not sure what they can do about it, though. I mean, it's more an engineering issue.
I don't know either, yeah. I'm just saying, I don't think it's not something I think we should be deciding here.
Look, I think what Neil was referring to is in previous settings, we have raised topics about proximity to the stream. And I don't know if the applicant heard those messages, but the plan is relatively, in fact, maybe exactly the same from what was proposed. So originally, given those comments. So I think what Neil's asking is, how have you taken the feedback, which I think has been consistent, although I think he more itemized the creek situation about other ones that are related to it. What have you guys done with that feedback is the question, I think.
Nothing. We haven't, I mean, we weren't instructed, as far as I know, to propose alternatives.
But I told you it was going to be a concern.
What?
I told you almost every time you've been here, I told you it was going to be a concern.
And that's fair, and we've been to the conservation board, we've received their feedback, they've given us direction on how to proceed with the mitigation measures. I mean, there is no restriction. There is no restriction from development here. There's a permitting process, and I mean, the freshwater wetlands ordinance is a permitting ordinance that allows you to do things within 100 feet of the stream with a freshwater wetlands permit.
Well, that's true, but if your building envelope could be moved further away from the stream without experiencing some sort of hardship in the development, it's perfectly legitimate for the planning board to say, move your building envelope back, you're too close to the stream.
This is the review process.
Well, I mean,
This is what we're supposed to be doing.
Go ahead, Peter, please.
Steve, does this necessarily become a precedent, or does each one get evaluated on its own merits?
Well, they all get evaluated on their own merits, but if someone else came in and their situation was close enough to this one, and you treated them differently, I think they'd have a legitimate gripe. It's like, hey, you approved it for them this close to the stream, they could have moved the building envelope, you didn't make them, you're making us move the building envelope? Now, the town board could enact, local laws to make a requirement that if it's possible to move it further away, then you have to do it. So, I mean, it may be the case that the precedent issue doesn't matter if the town board were to do that, but you have no guarantee that the town board's gonna do that. So you may wanna look at alternatives. It may, like I just said, it may not be possible to design this differently. Or at least not without, significant hardship in the development.
the area that we're proposing development, the area in question is already it's already disturbed. It's already a driveway. There's already a retaining wall there.
Well, but I thought one of the things that was suggested was not to rip down the wall, which would cause a lot of construction debris, and possibly to propose something else.
It's gonna make it more difficult to work in this area, keeping that retaining wall. It only makes sense to remove it and put the foundation
But I
there.
think what Neil Toman is suggesting is that may make sense for you, but possibly not for this beautiful stream that's in a pristine condition going through the site. So, I agree with him that if you could propose something that would be more protective of the stream, it would make a lot of sense.
Anyone else? Yeah, Dennis, please.
Yeah, Jason, I'm just curious, we had discussed doing the excavation on the I'll call it the house side of that retaining wall in order to lessen the probability of disturbing the stream. What are some of the problems you're foreseeing to do that excavation on that side, the building side of that wall? It's almost as leaving the wall there for additional protection during construction.
I don't know how you would do that. And leave I don't know how you would dig the foundation. You gotta dig.
The way I was
Right.
looking at it, just
I mean, then
abutting
you're
existing.
talking about, and then you're talking about having a gap between the foundation and the retaining wall.
No, I wasn't, me personally wasn't envisioning that. Basically butting right up against it.
Anyone else?
As a possibility, just if that was looked into and just to weigh it out.
Other board members? So Jason, I'm hearing 3 board members say they have concerns about this situation. I don't think you want me to call for a vote right now. So we have a couple of choices. Choice 1 is I call for a vote and it doesn't go the right way. Choice 2 is you take a month, go think about some other structural ways or acknowledge what Neil is saying, what Peter's recognizing, and just take that into consideration and come back to us. I think it's very clear to me that Neil Toman has been consistently saying this. I understand where you're coming from, saying I wasn't told to bring things. I think we can talk about as a board whether we need to be much more directive in nature to applicants, but generally when we ask the consensus of the board or board members' concerns, when someone says I have a concern about X, Y, and Z, that is usually, if subtle, a hint to say, could you take a look at this? So I think that's the spirit of what we're talking about here. And so, again, I don't think there's a debate on this. So I don't want to take a vote for your sake and your client's sake, because I don't think that's going to go the right direction for you at this moment.
I mean, is there a minimum separation distance?
I can't answer that. I'm not an engineer. I can't, all I can do is say, you've heard the feedback and it's been consistent. I agree with Neil Tolman. He has been, and what has been said, he's said this, Heidi said this as well. He's said this for multiple times, including at the site visit. So I would suggest you take the feedback, come back to us next month, and if there's nothing you can do, there's nothing you can do, but at least we've had the chance to.
There is something, there's do nothing.
That's not, what do you mean do nothing, sorry?
I mean, there's I mean,
But that's where we are, that you didn't do anything with the feedback.
yeah, but there's, no, not do nothing. There's do nothing in terms of construction. There's just no construction.
Okay, so somewhere between do no construction and do nothing with the feedback, I think that's a choice in front of you to do something with it. I don't know what you're, please.
So I think what we're getting at is that there's concerns, right, from a constructability standpoint and the design. So our gentle hint is to have your applicants relook at the design, incorporate what we are saying as the planning board into that consideration, and you might end up re-looking at the overall design and the approach to what they're looking for.
You have something, you guys want to add something? No? Okay. Dennis?
Just out of curiosity, Jason, is there any, when you say as-built, with any existing drawings of what that retaining wall looks like structurally? I mean, how deep it goes, what the footing of that looks like?
I'm sure it's just a foot. I don't think it has it's
I'm
not.
not talking about building on top of that. I'm talking about leaving it in place as an extra barrier to the possible destruction of that stream.
I mean, we're not going to destroy the stream. There's a lot of well.
There's a concern here about that.
Yeah, I don't want to, I feel like we're going on a loop here. We're going on a loop here. And I know you get a little
Okay.
heated when you don't like the feedback. The
Okay.
feedback is, you have two choices. I can take a vote now and the vote is no, or I can ask you to go back with your clients and have a conversation. I see the nice smile on one of your clients. I think she's seeing that maybe you should just take our advice so we can just
Okay.
make some progress.
Very, very well.
Yeah?
Yep, I got it.
You want to say anything? Nope. Anyone else? Board members, anyone? No? Come on to the mic, please.
Sorry, it's a bit more of a process question. If you take a vote tonight and the answer is no, what does that mean? Does that mean the same thing if we still have to go back and then repropose? What's the difference between?
That's a great question. We almost never say no because applicants hear our feedback and they say,
Right.
oh, well, thank you for the feedback. We'll go make it work for us and we get to a yes. In fact,
Yeah.
I've been on this board 12 years yet, Charlie? When was that dinner we had? I think it was 12 years ago. I don't think we've ever said no. A couple of people have stepped back and taken their project away, but I don't think we've ever said no.
Right.
So the answer is I don't know the answer. We can ask the lawyer. We got a legal eagle right here. What happens if we take a vote and we say no?
If site plan or subdivision approval is denied, that application is at an end. The applicant could submit an amended, or not amended, a revised plan. It would have to be different than the one that was just voted on and start from the beginning as far as the application process.
So either
goes.
way, we come back with an amended plan next month is what we're saying.
I don't think in the latter approach it's a month.
I don't know if the plan's necessarily going to be amended. I think the board's looking for some feedback on these issues as far as impacts on the stream.
Yep.
Be a letter, a report, what have you, just kind of explaining your position as far as impacts on the stream.
Yeah, understood. I just wanted to make sure I understood the difference in what we should be preparing versus not. Thank you.
Well, I think, Steve, just for a moment, I think Neil was asking for actually something slightly more than a memo debating and discussing why it's okay. I think he's saying, like, what other moves you can do, given the concerns.
Neil, you want to see revised plans?
Well, I don't see how we can approve this. I don't really know what the remedy is here for them, but I don't think we can. I personally feel like I can't get on board with this because of, well, what I said.
No, understood. I was trying to more think through because when we spoke to the Conservation Board and had them come out, they suggested mitigation of invasive species on the other side as a way that we could manage through this.
Right.
So I'm trying to understand how to best internalize the feedback in comparison to what we heard from them, and that's all I'm trying to work through.
Yeah, so
Yep.
as you know, the Conservation Board is an advisory
Yes,
group, and so
Yep.
they had a mixed read, as you know, about
Yep.
what they saw. So I think what you've heard from this board is take a look at the plan and see if there's some things you can do
Understood.
that may
I just wanted
acknowledge
to make
this.
sure I understood the difference between the steps.
You
Thank
got,
you.
you got it very clearly. Thank you. All right, anything else on this matter? All right, thank you very much. 1135 Route 9D, the Garrison Cafe. Want to read the?
Sure. Planning Board of the Town of Philipstown, New York will hold a public hearing on Thursday, June 15th, 2023, starting at 7:30 PM at the Philipstown Town Hall, 238 Main Street, Cold Spring, New York, to consider the following application. 1135 Route 9D, Garrison, New York, 10524, tax map number 60.18-1-16. Minor project, amended site plan application for a 385 square foot addition to existing cafe for storage, dated at Philipstown, New York, this 20th day of April, 2023. Neil Zuckerman, Chair.
Sir, the floor is yours for a brief summary of the project.
Okay, I'm Mike Maggio from Hudson Design, representing the applicant, Mon Raju for 1135 Route 9D in Garrison. As mentioned, we're looking to do an addition onto the southwest corner of the building for 385 square feet for basically storage for the cafe. There will be some renovations for the existing apartments as well as the cafe. So, no issues as far as setbacks or wetland issues or setbacks in any case. That's basically the project.
Okay. Anyone want to speak on this matter? Yes. Oh, all right. Just, why don't you come up, say your name, please, and share your thoughts. Anyone else want to speak in this matter? Just raise your hand. One, anyone else? Okay, so you can come up, sir, after she's done. Ma'am, floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Claudia Fidanche. I've lived in Garrison for 43 years. For the first 41 years, I lived on Route 9 in a house, and then my husband and I realized we were ready for a smaller home for late life. We no longer wanted the responsibilities of a large house. So due to my acquaintance, my friendship with Ms. Raju, Manjit Raju, whom I've known for over 30 years, she suggested that we come and see a site, see an apartment that was in its last stages of completion. So I met her to do that, and on that same day, we also met her son, Amanjit Raju. Mother and son are our co-landlords, and landlord and landlady. We have been very fulfilled where we are living for several reasons. I am a clinical psychologist by trade, so that's how I'll frame my remarks. Amandeep Raju is developmentally completely online. He is married, he has a child, he has a full-time job, but he's also able to assist his father keeping the property up to speed, up to score, because he can work from home. These things all, from the point of view of a developmental psychologist or clinical psych, speak to his stability, to his reliability, to his cooperative nature. He is mature as a young man in his 30s. I wish I could have a son like him. And he facilitated our move very well. He and his mother worked together with the Fidanches, my husband and myself, to develop a lease that was entirely approved by our attorney, quite reasonable. And every time we have needed any minor assistance or not so minor repair or the occasional attention to something, you all know how any edifice at all takes about a year to settle properly. So when a crack in a wall began to show after at least 13 months of our living in the new place, Amandeep was on hand to assist with that. He takes excellent care with the property. when it's time to mow or remove leaves, leaf blowing time of year, snow shoveling time of year, he makes sure that the property is safe for 2 seniors to move around in. He is my immediate neighbor upstairs. We are in the downstairs unit. I have no reason to believe that he would request a permit to add the storage area speciously. He would only want to do this if he was thoughtful about the plans for it, and aware that he could, in fact, affect this new bit of property. And I have absolutely no reason, after 2 3/4 months of living in the property. It'll be 3 years this August 21st. I don't have any complaints. I am very pleased and grateful that he is one of my landlords. And I do hope that you grant him the permission or whatever facility you can provide. I hope you'll grant that as soon as possible so that he can move on with this project. I know the property well. I've walked around the outside. I've been on the inside. It looks to me as though any addition the Rajus would make would be just as sturdy and viable as the place where I live. And if you have any questions, well, then thank you for listening. And for God's sake, be well and safe, please.
Okay. Do you want to say something, sir?
Can't say much more after my wife, but just that we have lived in Philipstown for over 43 years, and Amandeep is somebody who is very reliable. He has a business degree from Pace, and he's also very manually competent, so I feel confident that he will do whatever is necessary, and hopefully you'll approve it.
Okay, thank you. Any other members of the Amandeep fan club who want to speak? No? Going once, twice. Motion to close the public hearing? I'll make that. Thank you. Second? Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, public hearing is now closed. Any points of commentary on this 385 square foot extension? Can I get a motion to direct Ron to prepare resolutions to approve?
I'll second.
Thank you. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Anyone need a secret resolution too?
It's type 2 action.
Yeah,
Good, fine.
you've already done that.
Great. Okay, great. All right. Well, Ron, next month you'll have us some docs to sign, please.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. All right. Thank you.
Very good.
Next, stepping stones. Which is, did we not vote? Did we not vote on this last time?
No,
We didn't?
it's to approve the resolution. They're on for the approval of the resolution. We didn't.
Oh, all right. Okay, well, we have a motion to approve stepping stones. Was there any outstanding issues, Ron?
No, any appropriate conditions are included in the resolution itself, so.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Any conditions that must be satisfied have been identified and listed in the resolution for your action.
Okay. Motion to approve, sorry?
Last month?
I thought we did. So motion to approve stepping stones. Jason, hey, major business going on here. All right. Motion to approve, thank you, Heidi. Second.
Second.
Thank you, Peter. Any discussion? Guys, come on, I'm doing a vote here, come on. Jesus. I got a motion, I got a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye, opposed, abstentions. Motion passes. I will now take my pen out and sign stepping stone with a flourish. Okay. Now, Charlie, I know you're dying to jump in here. Jeez. Okay. Can you, Jesus, sir. There you go, that's done. Okay. Who's got comments on our site visit? Ron, you were there. Right. That grandkid was bothering us, though. Really distracted us from paying attention.
I want to note that she wasn't on Ron's report. I'm sorry.
Yeah. The cuteness factor is not going to sway this board, I'll tell you this. You should have brought a little kid. If you had been thinking. I'm just kidding. That is not, I do not condone that at all. It's bull. All right. Ron, the floor is yours. Site visit report.
The site visit was conducted by the board on June 5th. The comments were summarized in a memorandum you got from my office shortly thereafter. The board has previously declared it a type 2 seeker action, so that's been concluded. Necessary referrals have been made, and obviously they're here tonight to have a public hearing to move to the end of the process.
Okay. Anything else? Board members want to add anything? Schedule a public hearing? What? Well, I mean, it was nice property. Any comments? Anyone have any comments? Anybody? No? No? I don't think so.
You have a decision as to whether you want to schedule a public hearing or just move to resolutions. It's discretionary for a minor project.
It is our typical approach to have a public hearing. I feel like I don't want to go out of bounds on that, unless folks feel differently that we don't need a public hearing.
I personally don't think it's necessary.
Okay. Others? Go ahead.
I'd like to have it.
You'd like to have it, okay. Straw poll, who would like one? One. Who would like a public hearing? Raise your hand, please. 1, 2, 3, 4. Joe's what? You're 5. Okay, 5 to 1, and I have not voted. Okay, fine. So the answer is we're gonna have a public hearing. Motion for a public hearing? We need a motion, right? Yep, can I have a motion for one? Yeah. All in favor? All right, let's get a date scheduled. Cheryl? I guess the next meeting. We'll just do the next board meeting. Fine. Public hearing. Yeah, that's that. That's it. Unless you want to say something.
Nope. Thanks, sir.
Okay. This is the picture. Oh. That's nice. You want to just pass it along? Everyone can see it.
It's gonna be a party for more than that.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Next meeting we'll have the public hearing. Great. Okay. On to Hudson Highlands Reserve.
Was there a vote on that meeting?
What's that?
Is there an actual vote?
Yeah, we voted.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I heard the straw poll. I didn't hear.
All right, we voted. So this is what I want to do on this one. Unless you have some remarks you would like to make, sir, what I was going to ask Aaron and Ron to do, Aaron primarily, did we share your document with the applicant?
Yes.
Okay.
We have the document.
Okay, so we compiled a document, for those of the public, I see one member of the public who was here for speaking at Hudson Highlands Reserve. So we took the comments in the two sessions of the public hearing, that's been categorized and cleaned up a little bit for ease of reading. And what I wanted to do, Aaron, was I thought it'd be useful for you to walk through that list and identify which items were already, if you will, done and dusted, meaning they were considered and then they were, if you will, a part of the POSDEC and then eventual SECRA process, which we did approve, and then which ones stand outside of that. Because what I don't want to do is I don't want to relitigate, 8 years of work at this point. I just don't think that's fair to the applicant. But I do think it's fair that if there's any comments that we think are outside of the SECRA process, they are worthy of our conversation at this point. So that's, board members, that's what I thought we'd do. We don't have a physical copy of that, Cheryl, do we, handy?
This one?
Oh, great. Oh, it's in this one? Okay, great. So it's, board members, it's a memo. I don't know if everyone has it. Yeah. So it's how many items in your list, Aaron?
Quite a few.
How many?
A lot.
A lot. Okay, there's a lot.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So maybe it's best if you can.
I've identified some that I thought might be the ones to bring up
Okay.
already, if that would help.
Well, I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to be a little more than some. I want to identify all the items that were not already covered under SECRA. And let's identify them so the public knows what we're talking about. And then I turn over to you guys to come No, you don't have to in this session, but I think it's important for us, I think it's important for us to have a dialogue about those items still raised by the public that were not already covered under secret.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that because obviously, and we appreciate the effort that Mr. Werner and AKRF put into the memo. I received it and I saw the agenda and I thought we were going to be told, come back next month and respond to all. And obviously, we don't want to go through, we don't want to retread ground that the board has devoted so much time to already. So I appreciate that and I'd be happy to hear what Mr. Werner has to say.
Look, we're trying to balance public input with not repeating the same work that we've all done, you have done, we have done over many years, and many public hearings that came before them in the years past. So why don't we start with, unless you have some opening remarks.
No, other than Cheryl, I'm Judson Siebert of Keenan Bean PC representing the applicant, and I'm all ears.
Your name again, sir?
Judson Siebert.
Siebert, got it. Thank you, Mr. Siebert. Okay, so Aaron, the floor is yours.
All right, well, why don't we, first of all, Aaron Werner, AKRF, let's just kind of do a history lesson on this a little bit, because I know some board members weren't here. I won't take up too much time on that, but it does feed into a lot of what we're going to talk about potentially. So I think it was between 2014 and 2018, roughly, the board went through a deliberation on the full environmental assessment form, not the EIS, but the EAF, parts 1, 2, and 3. There was extensive review at that time by Graham Trellstad from AKRF. I think you remember him, former vice president with the firm, who was handling it at that time. So going through the part 2, you identified areas you wanted further study on. The applicant came back with a narrative report addressing all the issues. And around 2018, you decided that that there was potential for environmental impact in a handful of areas. So you issued a positive declaration to cover specifically areas of land use and zoning, water resources, vegetation and wildlife, and community character. Those 4 topics were the substance of the EIS. Everything else was handled in the EAF review because you didn't determine those to be significant. That includes school children, that includes traffic, that includes noise, lighting, all the things that go into that part 2 that you go line by line on when you deliberate. So for that reason, the EIS was pretty much targeted. We went through a draft environmental impact statement. There was a hearing in 2019 for that. First, there was scoping before it was prepared, which came up with the scope for those 4 technical areas that were the subject of it. The DEIS hearing was in 2019. There was 1 hearing held. It was a long meeting. It was a lot of comments. The applicant took those comments and came back with the final EIS around 2021, I believe, addressing with responses to every single comment. There was a lot of discussion between AKRF, the board. We had a lot of comment memos on how the phrasing and the voice of the document was presented, and also just the fact that the project changed. They eliminated the equestrian center. They removed some lots. They moved lots away from the pond. And just to note that EAF process before the pause deck happened was covering a 25-lot subdivision with the horse facility, the equestrian center, in it. So the traffic study that was done looked at both the residents and the potential horse trailers and trucks associated with that use. So in many ways, the project was reduced when it was in the EIS stage. Findings were adopted last summer, concluding the seeker process. So with that, I guess we could walk through some of these topics that are in the memo. If you look at the first page, community character, there's 6 bullets there, mostly about consistency with the neighborhood, McMansions, fiscalization of the town. I mean, these are all issues that...
I'll interrupt you. Can you help us identify which ones are ones we did not already ask and answer in the EIS process, the environmental...
For any of these, I would say none of them, because there was a community character assessment included in the EIS. There was a land use and zoning assessment that hit on all these issues about the clustering, the size of the lots, the consistency with the code, visual impacts. They did photo simulations, they did cross sections. So I'd say all of these were addressed.
By the way, board members, this is a matter of opinion in some ways and a matter of fact in others. So if people have different viewpoints and want to raise something, feel free, of course. Because what we're discussing right now is the public made a bunch of comments over the last 2 meetings related to Hudson Highlands Reserve. This is a summary of those comments. What I'd love to do is not debate things that we already litigated and voted on, because to do that would be not a great use of your time and the public's time. So what I'm trying to do is figure out the things here that are new, fresh issues that we feel like have not been properly vetted, and therefore we can vet them now. That's what I'm trying to do. Of course, you can talk about whatever you guys want, but that's the intention of what I'm asking Aaron to do right now. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I think this very well summarizes the comments. I did think there was a slightly more specific comment with respect to the entrance to the development.
Good.
Where a lady commented that she didn't think the entrance was sort of gonna, that it could be made more compatible for cars, for safety, I guess, essentially. Like, I guess, the way Glastonbury Court is, there's a broader entrance or something like that. I thought there was one specific comment, so it falls within the traffic section, that could be maybe spelled out a bit more. That was the only thing that I noted that I thought was brought up that isn't mentioned to this.
Good. Okay. All right, Aaron, you keep going, and then if any board member has any other comments, we'll pause along the way.
Conservation easement holder was the next topic, right? Top of page 2. I mean, that's a requirement of the subdivision. They need a conservation easement holder. They're proposing one. There was a conservation analysis done for the EIS. I don't think there's anything we disagree with in this set of comments. The board is going to need to see that easement holder in order to approve anything. So I think you will address these comments as you review the subdivision. I don't know if Steve has anything from the legal side to add, but.
Well, it's not just who the conservation easement holder is going to be. We're going to need to see a draft of it and what the terms are and how the restrictions are going to be enforced. So we're going to need both.
Go ahead.
I'm losing losing track a little bit as to what we're eliminating and what we're not eliminating. If you could just, maybe when you get to the end of the section, repeat it.
Good.
I did think that you said nothing needed to be done in the first section.
Community character.
That's correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
Glenn. You wanna-
Right, so for conservation easement, I think all 5 of these are going to be addressed through the board's review of the subdivision process here that we're underway right now in. As Steve mentioned, we're going to need to see that easement holder, a copy of the actual easement eventually. That's all stipulated in the finding statement as well. It's something that needs to happen in order to get approval.
Any board members' comments on the easement?
Okay.
Okay.
So the next one was construction impacts, construction noise, access using East Mountain Road North was brought up. It's already prone to flooding. How will construction vehicles operate along a school bus stop? So there's, the applicant already let us know last meeting that East Mountain Road North is not being used for construction at all. So I think that issue is dealt with. And again, construction, noise, the duration of construction, the nature of construction on this project, which is going to be, from what I understand, lots will be sold and homes will be proposed on an individual basis. They'll go through the town for permits. The planning board might review certain houses if they're of a certain square footage. It requires review. So construction was addressed as well in the EAF review that was happening before the EIS was, before the project was positive declarationed and an EIS was prepared. So I believe these have been addressed. And East Mountain Road North is obviously off the table for construction, so.
Okay. Any comments? No? All right. Housing, affordability. Is that in our purview?
It's really not a seeker issue either.
Keep going then.
Okay. Environmental other, at the bottom of page 2. The first comment is pretty much what I just summarized, that we had an EIS process that took 4 years to complete. So the impacts were thoroughly vetted through that process. The next item was about the number of homes allowed. Would have greater impact than 12 that would be allowed as of right under the, if it wasn't a conservation subdivision. Again, that was analyzed as part of the EIS thoroughly. Climate change wasn't a topic that was covered in the EIS, but construction on slopes, stormwater, all those things are handled with the SWIP and erosion controls that were part of the EIS and part of the finding statement. I'm on the next one, which is houses of this large size will result in greater strain on water and energy. Again, groundwater and the use of wells and septic was studied thoroughly in the EIS. An HOA agreement would not be able to monitor environmental concerns due to changing membership and priorities. It's more of an opinion, but I think this board's going to require the HOA bylaws be submitted and reviewed before there's any decision on this. That's something the applicant committed to in the EIS process, and it's in the finding statement. And I also believe Steve's firm would want to take a look at that in addition to the conservation easement info.
There'll be at least draft form with thresholds as to what's going to be in it. I mean, you can't expect a final version, but you got to find out exactly, what the power of the HOA to enforce the restrictions that are being imposed will be.
Yep.
I mean, that's the main thing.
Yeah, and can I just on a point of clarification for that? So with regard to both the preparation of the conservation easement document and the bylaws for the HOA, I guess my first question is it the board's position that those need to be provided before even a conditional approval would be adopted, or can those not be made a condition of approval? I mean, conditions aren't satisfied, there's no approval.
The way that the code is written, you're going to have to identify who's going to hold the conservation easement before you can get an approval.
Understood.
It cannot be
Okay.
conditional upon that. The board could, and I think I've mentioned this to the board before, approve conditionally your conservation subdivision, with one of the conditions being that the environmental, that the easement will be, conservation easement will be in form acceptable, and so too with the homeowner association regulations. Having gone through this process all these years, I can't speak for the board, but I would think that the board would not want to conditionally approve it that way. They're gonna wanna see at least drafts with a commitment from the property owner to have certain provisions in whatever conservation easement is ultimately signed off on and whatever homeowners association agreement is ultimately approved.
And I'm not trying to avoid work, believe me, it's gonna have to be done at some point, but just to get to an approval, I mean, sometimes these documents can take a life on their own. The preparation, just a synopsis or, basically an outline of what will be in both is,
Well, what the important issues are, their enforcement, and then what the restraints are, the provisions in regard to enforcement and the conservation easement are gonna be. Those are the issues the board's interested in. And if you can provide draft language and commit to having in substantial form, that may satisfy the board. Again, I can't speak for the board, but,
I'm trying to get a
ask me,
sense of
could they? Yeah, they could. Will they? I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, this is the first conservation subdivision before the board, right? So I think they are interested in seeing these things. And the finding statement and the FEIS is pretty clear about what the applicant was committed to doing, and the applicant did have a chance to read that before the board adopted it, so.
Understood.
Okay, view shed protections should be evaluated. They were in the EIS process, and light pollution was something that was, looking back in the files, I noticed was addressed through the EAF review. So I think we're through that section. Was there anything else? Any questions on that one?
Board members, environmental, other?
I would just like to say that I'd like to see a fairly vigorous HOA. I don't want that to be something that's left floating, to be kind of bandied about and maybe not as strong as something we'd like to see for our first conservation subdivision.
Okay.
Can I just add that, among other things, we were told that there wouldn't be lawns, wholesale lawns, that a lot of the native tree, it would be kept kind of consistent with the other properties in that area in terms of trees and kind of whatever native plants are there would be left, that it would not be denuded and replaced with, European turf grass lawns. That I would hope that would be in the HOA, for example. Those were kind of promises, I think, that were made.
That's correct.
Yeah, so hopefully that's gonna be in the HOA. I mean, I don't know if it's appropriate at this time to ask, are you already in conversations with a nationally accredited land trust to hold the conservation
We're
easement?
talking to land trusts. Do we have one? Not at the
Nobody
moment.
yet.
Yeah, no.
By the way, I want to thank you for saying that. I think just providing some transparency where you guys are is appreciated.
Yeah, thank you for answering my question, I really appreciate that.
I can add to Ms. Wendell's questions and concerns too. I think the finding statement, page 12, if anyone's interested, and I know it's being recorded, if you want to take a look back, there are notes from what the HOA, at least the draft bylaws that were part of the FEIS included. That was things like lawn area shall not exceed 2,000 square feet per lot. Patios, there's stuff about patios, decks, about not being more than 1/8 the square footage of the house, prohibiting cutting of trees and land clearing within 140 feet of the pond. I think there's also stuff about selective tree cutting, only cutting down trees that are not in good shape. Otherwise, clear cutting is going to be prohibited. There's a lot of stuff in there. So just, it's all in the finding statement. It was part of the bylaws. So I suggest you refamiliarize yourself with that when you submit something to the board, because it's something that you committed to and they're interested in seeing. So. Should I continue?
Please.
All right. Where did we leave off? Intent of the conservation subdivision. All right. So I think this one, Chairman, I know you've raised this a lot because it's been, obviously, these comments have been brought up throughout the process as far as the way the code is being interpreted. In this case, the planning board's job is to more or less implement the code, not interpret it. That's the zoning board's job. You've reviewed this in accordance with the code as it's written over many years. So, all of these comments are pretty much around the same, saying the same thing. So I think through the EIS, through the land use review of the EIS, through the findings, you've made it clear that they're meeting that code. As far as,
Am I the only one who noticed this balloon?
Congratulations, Greg.
It's hilarious. I just saw it. I'm hallucinating. It's possible. That's
So were any
possible.
of these not brought up? No, I mean, all of these, these have been discussed a lot over the years. The issue of the code.
Funny.
So,
I guess, again, over the years is not the question. The question is, was this dealt with explicitly in the?
I believe it was.
Okay. Anyone comments on intent of and sorry, Steve, I'll ask you, I feel like that's such a specifically legal topic that we keep running over and over and over again.
From the first day this was submitted, this issue was brought up, it's been resolved over and over again, and it always comes out the same way. The best proof of the intent of a law is the language used in the law. This board, as Aaron rightly said, does not interpret the law. You cannot deviate from the law in regard to the provisions of the code. You're here to apply them, and these are just not matters you can get into. They're just not.
Anyone else? Okay, I love your next category. Other, uncategorized. That's just brilliant. Keep going. It's like other.
yeah. Okay, so the planning board should require HOA rules and accountability standards. I think we've covered that. That will be presented, hopefully, by the applicant. Is it legal use for the preserved land to have horse facilities? Could the developers later be able to add horse facilities by right? My interpretation is no, and I believe the applicant's already committed to through the draft HOA that we've looked at through the EIS to prohibit horses or horseback riding on any of the conserved lands. So I think that answers that.
Now you're getting into, I'm just asking you one basic question. Is this covered before, or should be an issue we cover now?
It's covered.
So it's an issue we should cover now, is what you're saying?
It will be covered by the review of the HOA information.
Okay, it's an issue still on the table then, is what we're trying to get.
Well, yes and no. It's something the board addressed that we responded to, but will roll into the HOA
Thank you,
documentation.
perfect,
Yeah.
okay.
Property values and target buyers for the properties, I think the applicant can handle that. I don't know if it's really the purview of this board to
Yeah, I
talk
don't,
about that.
is that germane for us, Steve?
It is not.
It's not germane, yeah. Okay, review process. Sorry, any comments on the other category? No? Okay. Oh, this is in alphabetical order, I just noticed that, your categories. That's why we cover other now.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Got it, okay. Review process.
Okay. Again, a couple of these are opinions about concerns not being addressed, being dismissed. There was transparency in the process. There was hearings. There was public review, comment periods. Plans lack sufficient detail to understand the project and make a decision. I think I would disagree, just because right now we're at a point of a subdivision approval, and Ron can weigh in, but because he's going to be reviewing those engineering drawings, but I believe they do have everything needed. Julie's.
Yeah, that's all, being addressed in the hard engineering plans.
Topographic study, there's a SWIP and there's stormwater controls. The town board approved the alternate road standards for the steep entry road, so those were looked at. The only thing on this list I say that hasn't been addressed is the last one, which is the DOT and Board of Health approvals. But again, those are things that I think the board agrees are necessary for this project, and you could either require them now or as conditions, as Steve mentioned, so.
Well, generally, those are conditions of approval. You don't go and get your DOH approval or.
Right, well, DOT won't entertain a highway work permit unless you approve the subdivision.
So those would be, you'd approve it subject with those as conditions.
Correct.
Can I ask, where are we with the DOT at the moment? There's a steep road.
Plans are complete and are scheduled to go out this week to DOT. There's been several meetings and discussions with them over the years.
So, at the moment, are you thinking a 9, or you're trying to East Mountain Pass, or,
Well,
is it still the steep?
the
road
only
to 9?
entry that's on the table is the one from Route 9, period.
All right.
I would just mention that similar to DOT, Putnam County Health Department does not want to see septic plans until there is a preliminary approval on the table.
Okay. Schools?
Schools and community resources, yeah, that was looked at in the EAF as well.
Okay.
So
Stormwater?
that was looked at in the EIS, and I think all of these points have been addressed. Ron agrees with me on that, I believe.
No, that's absolutely correct. Been thoroughly vetted in the EIS.
There was one support of the project comment we noted, the applicant spoke, so noted that. So traffic. There's a lot of East Mountain Road North construction access and primary access comments. I think those can be dismissed because we've learned that that's not being proposed anymore. DOT approval, we talked about being conditioned. Traffic impacts were assessed in the EAF process prior to the POSDEC.
Okay.
I could elaborate, but it sounds like you want me to keep going.
Fine.
Okay. Vegetation removal, clear cutting. There was a whole vegetation and wildlife analysis in the EIS. There's HOA bylaws that are pretty clear about clear cutting and lawn clippings and other issues with maintenance. So I believe these have all been addressed as well. clear cutting won't be allowed, there'll be selective tree clearing. The planning board should require significant tree buffer. There's currently buffers around the pond to protect the pond, but there's no, I guess we could talk about that one as something that's hasn't really been specifically required. I'm not sure I understand fully the comment, but I believe that what's necessary to clear the site to put in the roads is the first step, and then individual lots will be developed individually. That's correct? As far as I know, they're not, the perimeter of the project is going to be kept a forested area. They're not going to be clear cutting anything. So perhaps that answers that.
Okay. Board members, any questions on that one? No? Okay.
Wetlands, they are not disturbing any on the site. So there will be a SWIP to protect the wetlands and the stream and the pond. So for that one, I think the EIS process was what addressed it.
Okay.
Wildlife disruption, forest fragmentation was heavily covered in the EIS. There was pages and pages of documentation and analysis by the applicant on that. All of these items were addressed as part of the vegetation and wildlife study.
Okay.
Zoning, we talked about already with the conservation subdivision as written code.
Okay. Board members, any comments on what was in, what was out of, that we've previously covered versus what are fresh areas? Anyone have a comment? Anything in addition you want the applicant to look at that may not have been raised? Okay. Sir.
I would just ask if Aaron could take his memo, change the line items that are struck out with strikeout text, and then reissue it so that we could, we're on the same page.
Sure, the ones that we've covered.
Yeah, the ones we want them to look at afresh that were not already asked and answered in the EIS. That is the, exactly.
Okay, sure.
The ones out of our purview.
And the ones out of our purview, very good. I think that's a really good point.
Will do.
Okay, Heidi, please.
Can I just make one suggestion?
Absolutely.
I know I'm the only person who voted against the project in terms of it being, in my opinion, not a conservation subdivision. I would love it if this memo could just state summary of public hearing comments on the Hudson Highland Reserve rather than conservation subdivision. I know that's a detail, but just for posterity, it would be great if it could minimize the, throughout this memo, there's mention of conservation subdivision.
But they are applying to be a
I
conservation.
understand, but I would love it if it could just be described as HHR. I'm sure I'm overruled, but it's a request.
I just don't understand why, because that's what they are applying for.
But I'm just hoping that somebody who 2 years from now applies to be a conservation subdivision would not think this is what our town wants. That's all. Because I think that there was a general consensus that perhaps a different intent was meant when the law was passed locally. And obviously, we can't do anything about that according to our lawyer, but I would just prefer that it not be emphasized that this is viewed as a conservation subdivision. It's just a comment, and I'm sure I'm overruled. I make that request.
Other board members' thoughts on the titling of the memo?
I think that's how it's being applied or going for approval for conservation subdivision. That's the label of it.
It qualifies under the existing zoning law, correct?
Yes.
Well, then.
Would it be helpful if it's, anyone else? Sorry. No. If it said summary of public hearing comments on the Hudson Island Reserve application to be a conservation subdivision, would that make you more?
Why can't it just say on the Hudson Highland Reserve, rather than emphasize the conservation subdivision?
I don't have a
aspect?
strong opinion. Aaron, would you be amenable to changing the title of your memo?
Sure.
Okay.
Just note that all the other documents you've adopted, like the finding statement and the FEIS, say conservation subdivision in the title, so. I was just trying to be consistent.
And that makes sense.
Should be consistent. Well, if it's gonna be consistent, then we should keep calling it a
Understand.
conservation subdivision.
It's an application for one, and that's how it's been called. That's the name of it.
That was what I was, that's what I was proposing as the alternative, to say an application for, I'm completely indifferent, so if no one else, if folks don't mind, I'm happy to have you change it to Heidi's.
Okay.
Okay, you guys have anything you wanna say?
No, thank you.
Okay. Aaron, if you could work on that itemized list that strikes out the things that are already been covered by the secret process, that would be, I think, helpful to Glenn and his crew. All right, guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Garrison Golf Course, Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival. What's our move tonight, Steve, on this?
This evening, going to be releasing to the applicant the AKRF memo so that they can take the comments and begin work on the FEIS.
Okay,
Correct, is it not?
Little, yeah, almost. There's a little more, well, they have our comments already, the applicant does. I think tonight we were going to officially release those comments as well as the transcript of the hearing from last month, which has been produced a couple days ago. It was sent around. All of the letters and emails that Cheryl has compiled, which are organized really well by date and everything.
good job, Cheryl.
So those should all be the record that's released to the applicant to begin drafting the final EIS.
So is there some formal, we have to release it, vote?
Well, it's more just you're acknowledging these are the documents that they're going to take into consideration in preparing the FEIS. If there are things beyond that that you want included, now's the time to speak up about it. If you're content with what Aaron described, then you should just leave it at that.
Board members have any boxes of documents, maybe in a bathroom somewhere, that they want? Hope everyone got that joke. Most people are smiling. Okay. So anyone have any other documents they want them to consider? No? Anyone? Aaron?
I just have an ask, and I think now is the time to just bring it up. Once these are released, I would like the applicant to put together their, what I like to call the comment index or the comment key, which is basically they take all the written comments, they go through them, they put a box around ones that might be of a particular topic, say, noise or visual impact. They highlight it or they identify it in some way, like boxing it or highlighting it. Next to it in the margins, identifying it with a specific number, the name of the commenter, and where it can be found in the FEIS response to comments as far as the response. That way, everyone that commented can see where their comments, that they were taken into consideration and where they are addressed in the final EIS. That way, we're not digging around to see that this person's comment get addressed, it did not. And I'd like to review that before they go full on responding. I think that would be helpful because we didn't really do that with the HHR EIS, and it did make things drag on a little bit. So if the applicant is willing to, once they've gone through the comments and tagged them, so to speak, share those with me offline, doesn't have to be in a meeting, and with Ron, and we can go through those and make sure that everything's being captured.
That sounds great. We'll do that, yeah.
Okay. So do I need a vote to say release the materials?
No, do you just want to reach a consensus as to what it is they're going to be looking at?
I mean,
They have the transcript, they have the AKRF memo, they have the letters, which Cheryl's put together. Unless there's anything else, I think they have the marching orders.
No, as Aaron mentioned, Cheryl did a great job putting everything together. We've got all the comments from the public hearing, the transcript, and AKRF's memo, and that's what we'll use as the basis for our comments that we're responding to.
Great. What's your ETA on that?
As quickly as we can, but we're shooting for a submission in August, early August.
Great. Okay, good. Any other business on this topic, anyone? No? All right, guys, thank you very much. Last item of business is the Vasta application.
So first look at this also. Upward Drive Ridge,
Yeah. Do you guys want, here, why don't you guys give these guys 2 seconds to pull down their boards? I don't know, maybe I have, I don't know. Okay, guys.
Hi, my name is Amanda Vasta. Pretty simple. We're just here to build a single-family home. We're getting married next year, and we're looking to build. So I know the HD approved septic and well, and we're here to talk to you guys. So that's all.
Okay. Do you want to talk to us about your project?
Oh, sure. So tonight, I didn't know if we were expected. I didn't bring my engineer because
Okay.
we gave everyone copies.
Okay.
And you can probably know a little bit more. Do you want to speak on it?
Yeah, we do have sleeve slopes. We were informed of that. We made a couple changes. We gave a revised copy. And it's a single-family house. We had to snake the driveway because the slope was too steep to go straight up, so that was revised.
Okay. Ron?
Sure. The board has a technical memorandum from my office reviewing the documents that were submitted to date from their engineer. The project was originally, a pre-application conference was held about a year ago. And at the time, we were attempting to understand the specific approvals that were necessary for the project. It lies in a rural conservation district, an RC zone, and it also lies within the Upland Drive and Ridge Road Development District overlay zone that was more recently created by the town board that placed additional environmental controls on some of these areas in the town that are very difficult to develop. This lot is clearly in one. It's on Cliffside Court. As I said, at the pre-application conference and subsequent with initial discussions with the town attorney, there was a feeling that site plan approval would be necessary for the project. The Upland Drive Overlay District specifically requires the Zoning Board of Appeals approval because they're disturbing such significant slopes on the property. Conservation Board would likely also be involved, again, given the amount of site disturbance and the very difficult slopes that traverse the track. I was unable to make contact with Steve to get his opinion on this before I had to release this memorandum for the board, but it more recently has become our opinion that the planning board doesn't have any significant standing in terms of granting a site plan approval.
Okay.
It does lie within an open development area of the town, so that action might be yours. But for the most part, the action will be reviewed by the Zoning Board of Appeals and various other agencies that have to review the project.
Okay. So, Steve, what are you recommending we do right now?
Well, their application seeks site plan approval and does not seek ODA approval, which is backwards, in my opinion at least. The way that the open development area law was revised, because you're on Cliffside Court, you have to improve, and you have more than 10 houses on that road, you have to improve that road up to town road standards in order to build, read a building permit. There's no proposal here to do that. I would think that, am I wrong?
Well, we did.
To maintain the road.
No. You have to actually build the road to town road standards. Bring in graders and bulldozers and putting curbing and concrete and.
That wasn't in the plan? It should have been
No,
in the.
he's talking about the actual road, Cliffside.
There's no road plan, there's driveway plans, there's
It's
no road.
paved,
floor.
right? I thought, Okay, I'm sorry.
Ron, am I wrong? Is there a road improvement plan?
They have, I wouldn't call it an improvement plan. They did conduct or provide a survey of Cliffside Court from Upland Drive to the frontage of the property.
Okay.
That exists, but they haven't identified it, the need for any improvements or relief, a request for any relief necessary where they can't conform.
Well, and it's more than that. The code says, I'm not trying to be mean to you, I'm just telling you what, the law says you have to demonstrate in your plans that you can meet town road standards. Town road standards are quite high. So you can't just say, here's a survey of the road. You're gonna have to have an engineer come in and say, the road meets town road standards. Now, if you can't meet town road standards for some particular reason, then you can say, because the code provides, well, we can't meet those standards, but let us build it. There's really nothing the board can do for you at this point, because local law that was enacted to create the Upland Drive Ridge Road Development District contains a provision saying that the steep terrain and ridge line protection regulations of Code Section 175-36 apply to any properties being developed within the overlay district, which you're in, and disturbance of slopes over 30% or greater for the purposes of those listed in 175-36B1, which is pretty much anything except, you know, some minor roadway improvements and things like that, requires an area variance from the zoning board. So for 30% or more, you got to go to the zoning board. For less than 30%, but over 20%, you need to get a steep slopes waiver from this board. So you're before this board for, it's actually a special use permit. So you're before this board, at least for the one thing, the steep slopes special use permit. If you're over 30%, you're gonna need a referral to the ZBA. And at the end of the day, and I would do it now, I wouldn't wait. If you need a waiver in regard to Cliffside Court, which I'll bet dollars to donuts you're gonna need, you're gonna have to have an engineer put together a road improvement plan and come in with that. I mean, the good news is it's a single-family home, so you're going to be a Type 2 action under SECRA. You're not going to have to go through SECRA review, but you've got a lot of engineering work, and you're going to have to amend your application to proceed.
My only question would be, you said because there's more than 10 houses, does that account for,
We're on Cliffside.
we're
I
on
think there's
Cliffside, so there's only 3 houses on
Or
Cliffside.
4.
4.
I believe there's in excess of 10 lots. We would agree there's very few developed, given the topography, so. But,
Yeah, the code does say lots. It doesn't
right.
say houses.
It's not occupied properties.
Okay. So what's our next step then practically? For them to come back with engineering documents around this?
Make a referral to the ZBA.
I wouldn't, not
No?
until they've
Seen
got
it?
their plan together.
Okay.
I mean, Ron's right. You could refer them now. They do have part of their application before you to the zoning board. But I would suggest that until they have their entire application before you, I wouldn't make any referrals. I mean,
Is it clear to you guys what you need to do? Yes. It is. So Ron's available to provide guidance about what else you need on, okay? Because I think there's a lot being asked for these properties up there, and I want to make sure you guys know exactly what you need. So, Ron, you're obviously been talking to them, you had the pre-app meeting, so any additional guidance you can provide them, I think would be appreciated.
Okay, then we can meet outside the meeting or discuss this issue and try to help you move along.
All right, guys, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, any new business? No? No? Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Moved. All in favor? All right, all in favor, say aye. Thank you much. All right, guys, excellent, thank you. Good meeting, good work. Everyone left happy.